We're up to Daf Samachas Amid Aleph. We're up to the Mishnah. The entire Gemara is covered in water. Okay. Mishnah says like this. Now the carbon oimer, this is very important to understand. Oh my gosh, the entire computer, I'm sorry. The entire computer is wet. What is happening? It's the dust creates moisture somehow. No, so yes, Gavin, I took my medicine, thank you so much. Oh my gosh. I love whoever is like starting it is like, what is happening? Well, you gotta be here to see all the moisture everywhere. Anyway, so the Mishnah. Maybe mom's car is wet. Okay, anyway. So you have to understand one thing, is that the carbon oimer is brought on the second day of Pesach, and it's mater chadash in Eretz Yisrael. However, one quick point, the second the carbon is brought, you could eat chadash. The second that it's brought, that's mater chadash min haTorah. What today's daf is going to be dealing with is two things. First of all, what happens nowadays where there is no Beis HaMikdash? There's a couple options. There's two options basically. It's mutter that morning, meaning min haTorah, when the Beis HaMikdash is no longer in existence, that morning is mater, or the following day. You have to wait till the following day. The second day of Pesach, first day Chalmud. Now, another thing to remember, Oimer on Pesach is mater chadash, and the Shtei HaLechem is mater chadash as a carbon. Meaning, between the Omer, between Pesach and Shavuos, I could eat chadash in Yerushalayim. I cannot bring chadash grain as a carbon until the Shtei HaLechem on Shavuos. Okay, that we'll deal with. Says the Mishnah, Mishakar v'Omer.
Second Beis HaMikdash, they were so deep.
They were so deep.
That's what it kind of came.
Well, we'll see. What do you say? Mishakar v'Omer, when the Omer was brought, Huter chadash miyad. When there was a Beis HaMikdash and they brought the karma omer, the second the carbon omer was brought, you could eat chadash. And in the times of the Beis HaMikdash, if let's say you were far away from the Beis HaMikdash, you were living in Tveria. So how do you know when the carbon was brought? From chatzos and on is fine. Meaning that in the Beis HaMikdash, they never delayed the carbon past chatzos. Okay. Now, mishacharav Beis HaMikdash, but nowadays where there is no Beis HaMikdash, so when is chadash muter? It's a machlekes. Hiskin Rav Yechim ben Zakkai sheyoim hanaf kuli aser. The simple way of understanding Rav Yechim ben Zakkai is that he was metakin that the day of Chol HaMoed, that day the carbon was brought, you're not allowed to eat the chadash. Meaning, min haTorah, the simple way of understanding Rav Yechim is as follows: min haTorah, when there's no Beis HaMikdash, it's mutter that morning. So let's say the first day of Chol HaMoed is a Sunday. Well, let's go to Tuesday, but if the first day of Chol HaMoed is a Tuesday, so when the Beis HaMikdash is around, they bring the carbon 11 o'clock in the morning. There's no Beis HaMikdash, it's mutter dawn. Right away in the morning, alois. But Rav Yochanan ben Zakkai was metakin that entire day is aser, as a takanas chazal, as we'll see, because he said meheri yabana Beis HaMikdash, that Beis Hashem the Beis HaMikdash will be rebuilt, and the next year people are going to, if they get so accustomed to eating in the morning, they're going to eat in the morning next year, not realizing there's a carbon brought. Says the Gemara, says the Mishnah, sheyev hanav kulei aser. Rav Yehuda says to Rav Yochanan ben Zakkai, haloi min haTorah aser. What are you talking about? You're telling me that the day of Chol HaMoed is really mutter min haTorah, and it's only aser d'Rabbanan. It's not true. Min haTorah it's aser. Meaning, according to Rabbi Yehuda, when there's a Beis HaMikdash, the carbon is matter. When there's no Beis HaMikdash, that entire day is aser. Meaning, according to Rabbi Yehuda, min haTorah, when there's no Beis HaMikdash, that entire first day of Chol HaMoed is aser. Because the pasuk says ad etzem hayoim hazeh, and he describes etzem as itzumai ad va'ad b'chlal. According to Rabbi Yehuda, that entire day is aser min haTorah. Shenemar ad etzem hayom hazeh, because the pasuk says you are allowed to eat it when you bring the carbon, and it says ad etzem hayom hazeh. So which one is it? So etzem hayom hazeh means when there's no Beis HaMikdash, it's mutter. Rav Yochanan ben Zakkai translates etzem hayom hazeh as the beginning of the day. Rav Yehuda says no, it's etzem means the middle of the day, but ad vad b'chlal, that entire day is included in the iser. So he holds the entire day as aser. Now, going back to the previous halacha that we said that during the times of the Beis HaMikdash, if you're far away from the Beis HaMikdash and there were no phones, and you want to know when the carbon is brought, you could be mater from chatzos, because the Beis HaMikdash, they were never lazy, and by chatzos, they for sure brought the carbon. No question, the carbon was brought by chatzos. Okay, so you have a machlokes, a simple pshat machlokes, Rav Yechim ben Zakkai and Rav Yehuda. If bisman hazeh, when there's no Beis HaMikdash, is chadash muter miyad in the morning or only the following day? Says the Gemara, this machlokes Rav Yechim ben Zakkai and Rav Yehuda, Amoraim also took sides on it. Rav Shmuel Damar Tavayu, Rav and Shmuel both said, bisman se Beis HaMikdash kayim oimer mater. When the Beis HaMikdash was around, the carbon was mater chadash, bizman she'ein beis hamikdash kayim. But nowadays, where there is no beis hamikdash, heyer mizrach mater. That morning is mater. Simple pshat is they're agreeing with Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai that it's muter miyad in the morning min haTorah. Again, and maybe there's a takanas chazal not to, but that's a separate story. My timer, what's their source? It says trei kroi ksiv. There's two contradictory psukim. Ksiv ad haviyachem. Right? That one pasuk says ad haviyachem, which means the carbon is mater. Uksiv ad esem yom hazeh. And another pasuk seems to indicate that the morning is mater. So which one is it? Is it the carbon or is it the morning? And the answer is very simple. Okay, zed kam bez mizrach kayim, kam ze mizrach kayim. When there's a beis hamikdash, the carbon is mater. When there's no beis hamikdash, the morning is mater. Good, that's Rav and Shmuel. Rav Yochanan of Rish Lakish damer tevayu afilu bizman shebeis hamikdash kayim heyer mizrach mater. They have a tremendous chiddush. Says Rav Yochanan and Rav Rish Lakish, even in the times of the beis hamikdash, it was muter miyad in the morning. Meaning, the inyan of waiting for the carbon is l'chachila. So even in the times of the beis hamikdash, the second alois comes, you're allowed to eat chadash. I thought you have to wait till the carbon. It's a mitzvah to wait till the carbon, but me'ikar adin, it's muter in the morning. Even bizman shebeis hamikdash hayakayim. That's Rav Yochanan and Rish Lakish's shita. Yeah. According to Rav Yochanan and Rish Lakish, you did not have to wait until the carbon was brought me'ikar hadin. But as we'll see, obviously there's an obvious question. I thought you have to wait for the carbon. And the answer is that's l'chachila. Says the Gemara, haksiv ad yachem, doesn't the pasuk say you have to wait until the carbon is brought? La mitzvah. Meaning me'ikar hadin is mutter in the morning, according to Rav Yochanan and Rish Lakish. Mitzvah is a mitzvah, l'chachila is to wait until a mitzvah l'chachila until the carbon is brought. Oh my gosh. I did not have this much water. This is an insane amount of water. I don't know. Anyway.
You actually jumped in the swimming pool,
Evidently. And I hurt my back when I jumped in the pool, I hurt my back. All right. So, weiter, says the Gemara. So Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish say it's muter miyad. The pasuk says the carbon. That means l'chachila to wait till the carbon. Says the Gemara. Right, a couple more questions. Same answer. Doesn't the Mishnah say mishakarav ha'omer huter chadash miyad? Doesn't the Mishnah say that it's only muter when the carbon is brought? The answer is l'mitzvah. Again, l'chachila to wait until the carbon. But mikra adin is muter in the morning. Doesn't the Brisa say ha'omer ha'yamatim medina v'she'alechem migdash? Doesn't the Brisa speak it out? I'm sorry. The next Mishnah say that the omer was mater in the Beis omer in Eretz Yisrael, and the she'alechem was mater in the Beis Hamikdash. So you see that the omer is mater, not the morning. The answer is l'mitzvah. Again, same answer. Go to the next page. Now, here's a bit of an issue. Says the Gemara. I'm sorry. The Mishnah says like this: Mishacharev Beis Hamikdash, Hiskin Rav Yochanan ben Zakkai, Sheyoim Hanav Kulei Aser. So we said in the Mishnah that Rav Yochanan ben Zakkai said that he was metakin that entire day is aser bisman there's no Beis Hamikdash. Why? And my time, why is Rav Yochanan ben Zakkai said that when there's no Beis Hamikdash, the entire first day of Chol Moed is aser? Because famously he said Meheri Abana Beis Hamikdash, the Beis Hamikdash Be'ez Hashem will be rebuilt. And v'yoimru, and if we allow bisman hagalus, if we allow you to eat it early in the morning, I'm just going to say it outside. You'll see the obvious problem. What's his point? Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai says today, if we allow you to eat it in the morning, right? Because bisman she'ein beis hamikdash kayim, you don't have to wait till the carbon, so you're allowed in the morning. What's going to happen? Be'ez Hashem, the Beis Hamikdash will be rebuilt. The following year, everyone's going to start eating in the morning, and the Kohen Gadol is going to say, no, there's a carbon now. You got to wait. But according to Rav Yochanan and Rish Lakish, even Bisman Beis Hamikdash Kaim, it's mutter in the morning. So what are you making a gzera for? What is your fear? Your fear is that if we allow you to eat it in the morning now, you're going to come, lest you come to eat it in the morning when there's a carbon. But even at the time when there's a carbon, it's mutter in the morning, according to Rav Yochanan and Rish Lakish. So what's going on over here? Says the Gemara, my time Beis Hamikdash Yom Mishtakim Ilo Yachalnu Beher Mizrach. Hashanami nechal v'yad shakal have a oimer higher mizrach mater. Hashta the ikar oimer mater. They're not going to realize the difference. That last year there was no carbon, so that's why it's mutter in the morning. Now there's a carbon, it's not mutter in the morning. Wait a minute. According to Rabbi Yochanan, even when there's a carbon, it's mutter in the morning. So what's going on? Mitzvah, according to Rabbi Yochanan, it's mutter min haTorah in the morning. So we're going to make gzeres because maybe you won't lichachila wait. What's going on over here? it seems to be that Rav Yechon and Rish Lakish don't fit with Rav Yechon ben Zakkai's takana. So you know what the answer is? A very interesting way of how they look at it. They actually say the following. Rav Yechon ben Zakkai does not believe what you believe, which is, Rav Yechon and Rish Lakish are going in the Shita that it is mutter min ha-Torah in the morning, right? It's mutter min ha-Torah in the morning, and when there's no Beis HaMikdash, and when there is a Beis HaMikdash, it's also mutter in the morning, and therefore therefore they wouldn't believe in this gzera. What was Rav Yehuda's Shita? Rav Yehuda's Shita in the Mishnah was that there's no Beis HaMikdash. That entire first day of Chol Hamoed is Asr min ha-Torah. Rav Yechon and Rish Lakish obviously don't hold that way because they say it's mutter miyad. Rav Yechon and Rish Lakish do not jive with Rav Yehuda. Seemingly, they've been going with Rav Yechon ben Zakkai. The problem is they now no longer go with Rav Yechon ben Zakkai either. So the answer is, Rav Yechon ben Zakkai and Rav Yehuda don't argue. Rav Yechon ben Zakkai and Rav Yehuda both hold the entire first day of Chol Hamoed is Asr min ha-Torah. They don't argue. Rav Yechon and Rish Lakish are not going in their shitas. Meaning, if you'd ask Rav Yechon and Rish Lakish, how do you work with Rav Yechon ben Zakkai? They would say, we don't. Well, what do you mean? What do you mean you don't? Who do you hold like? I thought the two opinions are Rav Yochanan ben Zakkai and Rav Yehuda. The answer is, no, they agree with each other. And we don't go with it, and either of them. Meaning, Rav Yochanan and Rish Lakish hold that the first day of Chol Hamoed, it's mutter min ha-Torah miyad, when there's no carbon. Mutter min ha-Torah miyad. Rav Yehuda doesn't hold that way, and neither does Rav Yochanan ben Zakkai. And when Rav Yochanan ben Zakkai says his skin, when he made a takana, it wasn't a takana. Rav Yochanan ben Zakkai actually holds like Rav Yehuda, that the second there's no Beis HaMikdash, it's aser the entire day. And therefore they don't have to fit with Rav Yechon ben Zakkai because they're not going in that shita. They hold according to the opinions that it's mutter miyad in the morning. That's their shita, and they hold even bigger chiddush that even bisman b'sev l'shkaim it's mutter miyad in the morning. It doesn't work with Rav Yehuda. True, Rav Yehuda holds the entire day as aser. We're not going with him. It doesn't even work with Rav Yechon ben Zakkai. The answer is Rav Yechon ben Zakkai and Rav Yehuda agree with each other. But didn't Rav Yehuda say to Rav Yechon ben Zakkai, you're wrong? And the answer is Rav Yehuda misunderstood Rav Yechon ben Zakkai. Rav Yehuda thought Rav Yechon ben Zakkai was arguing with him. He wasn't. So the answer is Rav Yechon ben Zakkai and Rav Yehuda are in one class, and that is they hold that the entire day of first day of Chol Hamoed, Tez Zayin Nisan, is Asr min ha-Torah when there's no Beis HaMikdash, and Rav Yechon and Rish Lakish don't agree with that. Says the Gemara, Amr of Menachos Yitzchak, Rav Yechon ben Zakkai, b'shitas Rav Yehuda Amra. They don't work with Rav Yechon ben Zakkai. The answer is because Rav Yechon ben Zakkai holds like Rav Yehuda. They both hold the Amr min ha-Torah Asr, that the entire first day, now there's no Beis HaMikdash, it's Asr min ha-Torah to eat chadash the entire first day. So when Rav Yechon ben Zakkai said his skin, Rav Yechon ben Zakkai, it's not much of a takana. It's actually Asr min ha-Torah. So says the Gemara. Correct. They both agree with each other. Now, the problem with saying this is a couple things. One is both opinions now agree with each other. So, like, the flow of the Mishnah seems to be they argue. Number two is Rabbi Yehuda definitely thought they argue because Rabbi Yehuda said to Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, you're wrong. Number three, his whole thing is like his skin, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, he made a takana. Now you're saying, no, it's not a takana. He actually holds Asa Deraisa. According to Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, if you ask him, why is it you can't eat on the first day of Chol Hamoed nowadays? It's not Meheira, Yebana, Beis HaMikdash. Maybe it's Asa Deraisa. It's Asa Deraisa, that's why. Those are the three issues we're going to have to deal with. The Gemara speaks it out. Does Rav Yechon ben Zakkai and Rav Yehuda agree with each other? Hamiflik polygala. Don't they argue the Tanan? What does the Mishnah say? Mishachar Beis HaMikdash. His Rav Yechon ben Zakkai Shem Gahanav Kulei Aser. And Amar Rav Yehuda. Rav Yehuda says Haloi Min HaTorah Aser. Rav Yehuda argues with him. Aren't they arguing whether it's Aser Deraisa or Aser Derabanan? The answer is Rav Yehuda the Katai. Rav Yehuda made a mistake. Really, they agree with each other. That really Bisman Hagalus it's Aser Deraisa. And we'll have to figure out what does it mean takana, but it's a taka asa deraisa. So I thought, why does Rav Yehuda say this? Rav Yehuda misunderstood Rav Yechon ben Zakkai. Rav Yehuda thought they were arguing velohi, but they don't argue. Midaraisa kamar. When Rav Yechon ben Zakkai said he not let eat it the first day of Chol Hamoed, it was not a takanas chazal. It was deraisa. So Rav Yehuda was the one who misunderstood the machlekes. Says the Gemara, hahiskin katani, but it says Rav Yechon ben Zakkai was metakin, and the answer is my hiskin darash v'hiskin. The answer is he wasn't metakin. What it means is he made a drasha and he reinstituted the biblical concept. Meaning, so if you would ask me right now, the conclusion, what is Rav Yochanan ben Zakkai's shita? Rav Yochanan ben Zakkai's shita is like this. When he sees people eating chadash on the first day of Chol Hamoed, now that there's no Beis HaMikdash, he says stop. Why? So we thought it's because really it's mutter, min ha-Torah, but Bez Hashem, when the Beis HaMikdash comes, it'll be usher until the carbon bus. He doesn't want to avoid confusion. The answer is no, that's not the pshat. he holds that it's taka aser to eraisa when there's no Beis Hamikdash to eat on the first day. And his takana is, Bez Hashem, the Beis Hamikdash will come, and when the Beis Hamikdash comes, we'll have a way to do it, but until then, it's taka aser to eraisa. So you have to reread it. So what he said, like Beheri Bana Beis Hamikdash, it's not really Beheri Bana Beis Hamikdash. He's basically made a drasha, and he said, this is aser to eraisa. The lashon, his lashon is, it's, yeah. Meaning his point is that Mehiri Bana Beis Hamikdash, meaning when the Beis Hamikdash is built, Bez Hashem, the carbon will be matter. Until then, it's taka aser deraisa. Just doesn't the lashon is not doesn't flow that well, but that's the pshat. Okay, so we've had different shitas. Let's assume that Bizman Hazeh we paskin like Rav Yechon Rish Lakish that when there's no Beis Hamikdash, it's mutter on the first morning of Chol Hamoed. Says the Gemara, Rav Papa, Rav Huna Breder Yeshua. Achli chadash bu'urta the shitzar nagi shevsar. Rav Papa and Rav Huna Breder Yeshua would eat grain. They would eat grain until the morning of Chol Hamoed, meaning they did not wait an extra day. Now, why is this a chiddush? I'll tell you why. Chutz la'aretz is a sveka d'yoma. So the question is it mutter miyad, or do you have to wait till the second day of Chol Hamoed? Because the second day of Chol Hamoed, meaning, is it the second day of the Yom Tif or the first day of Chutz La'aretz Chol Hamoed? Really, it's the second day of Pesach, it's mutter. The question is in Chutz La'aretz, where everything is a little bit confused on the days, do you have to wait an additional day? So says the Gemara, Rav Papa Rav Huna B'Yeshua did not wait. Meaning, they were mekel on the first morning, they did not do a Sveika D'Yoma to make an additional day. Why? Because Sabri Chodesh B'Chutz La'aretz D'Rabbanan. Because they said, listen, the whole Chodesh and Chutz La'aretz is only D'Rabbanan. I'm not going to be machmer Sveika D'Yoma and this is D'Rabbanan. No. Says the Gemara, Rabbanan D'Ber Rav Ashi, Achlu B'Tzafar D'Shevsar, because Avi Chodesh B'Chutz La'aretz D'Raisa. They actually waited until the entire day is over because they hold that Chodesh and Chutz La'aretz is D'Raisa, and therefore they were machmer. Now, says the Gemara one more opinion, and Rav Yechon ben Zakkai mit der Rabbanan Kamar v'chitakim loYohanna v'sveika loYtakim. Meaning, the Gemara says that Rabbanan D'Ber Rav Ashi they would eat in the morning of the 17th. So that's the first. They would wait the entire day. Meaning, they were machmer like the Takana of Rav Yechon ben Zakkai, but they did not do an entire Sveika D'Yoma. So the first opinion of Rav Papa and Rav Huna Breder Yeshua was they would wait until they would eat the morning of the 17th. They would wait until the end of the 17th. And the last opinion is Am Ravina Am Really Aim Avuch Lehava Ochel Chadash Ela Beurta Deshev Sanagi Tamnesar. Ravina says that my mother told me that my father would not eat until the 18th. The Savak Rav Yehuda the Chaysha Sveika. Mamish the entire first day and the entire second day they were Mamish Chaysha Sveika D'Yoma to do an entire 2 days until the 18th. Okay. New topic, and this will take us to the end of the daf. Again, the one thing to remember is the Omer is Mater Chadash in Chutz La'aretz as an individual, but the Shtei HaLechem on Shavuos was Mater Karbonis to bring Chadash as a carbon. So between Pesach and Shavuos, if I'm bringing a carbon mincha, I cannot bring Chadash grain. I can eat Chadash grain in my house, but I cannot bring as a carbon. The pasuk describes the Shtei HaLechem as on Shavuos as the Bikurim. It's the first wheat that is brought to God. Because I don't. No, I think Hashem has a much higher standard than I do in my kitchen. Meaning Hashem's kitchen in the Beis Hamikdash, the pasuk describes, so basically the Omer on Pesach is going to be barley. So the first barley is brought on Pesach, and the Shtei HaLechem is the first wheat, and that's brought to Hashem. That's a kasha on time of the Kra. Says the Mishnah, Ha'omer hayamater b'Medina. The Omer would be mater chadash throughout the Beis Hamikdash, throughout Yerushalayim, throughout Eretz Yisrael, outside of the Beis Hamikdash, the Shtei HaLechem b'Mikdash. But the Shtei HaLechem was mater karbanis in the Mikdash. Says the Gemara. Says the Mishnah. Ein mevi'in menachos ubikurim minchas behema kaidim la'omer v'im hevi pasel. But kaidim Shtei HaLechem lo'yevi im hevi kasher. You're not allowed to bring chadash as a carbon until Shavuos. If you bring it before Pesach, the halacha is that b'diavad is pasel. But if you bring it before Shavuos, b'diavad is kasher. Yeah? So that's the difference. So says the Mishnah. The Mishnah said, just one lik halacha, if you bring the chadash before Pesach in the Beis Hamikdash, it's possible b'di'evid. But if you bring it before Shavuos, it's kosher b'di'evid. Now the reason why that's interesting is because I told you in the Beis Hamikdash you're not allowed to bring chadash before Shavuos. So, but there is a kula. If I bring chadash in the Beis Hamikdash between Pesach and Shavuos, it's kosher b'di'evid. If I bring it before Pesach, it's possible legamri. If I bring it before Shavuos, it's kosher b'di'evid. Even though from the Beis Hamikdash's perspective, Shtei Alechem is the boundary, but if I bring it between Pesach and Shavuos, where at least it's edible in the average person's home, Hashem says no b'di'evid is fine. Says the Gemara, Yosef Rav Tarfon Kakashale. Rav Tarfon asks the following question: what is the difference between before the Omer, where if you bring a karban chadash before the Omer, before Pesach, it's pasul, but if you bring a karban before Shavuos, it's kosher? What's the difference? Pesach is a barometer for Yerushalayim. From the perspective of the Beis Hamikdash, Pesach is irrelevant. So if I bring a chadash before Pesach, it's possible because it's not the proper time. But if I bring it before Shavuos, b'di'evid it's fine. What's the difference? The only difference between Pesach and Shavuos is that people's homes are eating chadash. But from the perspective of the Beis Hamikdash, there's no difference. So why is it, says Rav Tarfon, that if I bring a karban before Pesach, it's possible, but if I bring a karban that's chadash before Shavuos, it's kosher b'di'evid? What's the difference? So Amr Lefon of Rav Yehuda ben Nechemia, by the way, not Rav Yehuda, Yehuda ben Nechemia, interesting. Yehuda ben Nechemia says to Rav Tarfon, Loi, it's a very simple answer. And the answer is, before the Omer, shekein loy huter mechlala eitzel hedit. Chadash is not allowed anywhere in Eretz Yisrael. So because it's not allowed anywhere in Eretz Yisrael, if you bring a karban of chadash, it's completely possible. But between Pesach and Shavuos, where at least it's edible in the average Jewish home, okay, no, if you bring a karban, but the evidence it's kosher. Shekein loy huter mechlala eitzel hedit. Timer kaid m'shtei alachem shehuter mechlala eitzel hedit. Between Pesach, it's fine. Between Pesach and Shavuos, if you bring at least it's permissible in the average Jewish home. Says the Gemara. So that was b'di'evid. B'di'evid, it's yaitz zayin because at least it's chadash that's permissible in the average Jewish home. Again, b'di'evid. No, so before Pesach, where Chadash is aser in all of Eretz Yisrael, and everywhere, if you bring a karban of Chadash, it's pasul gamri. But between Pesach and Shavuos, although you're not supposed to, if you bring Chadash, it's mutter. Why? Because at least it's mutter in the average home. Rav Tarfon did. Correct. Rav Tarfon, you're right. Rav Tarfon didn't think of this because Rav Tarfon said to himself, "What does it matter what's going on in the Jewish home? If Hashem does not want a karban of Chadash till Shavuos, it should be a problem." Rav Yehuda ben Nechemia was mechadish that Hashem looks into the average Jewish home. And he says, listen, if it's kosher there, no, b'di'evid it's fine here. Now, Rav Tarfon hears this, and it's interesting, Gemara. Shasek Rav Tarfon. Rav Tarfon got quiet. He meaning that shut him up. Now says the Gemara, Tzavu panav shall Yehuda ben Nechemia. They take out Rabbi. But probably because of the story. Tzavu panav. Yehuda ben Nechemia smiled, he's nice. He was very happy that he basically bested Rav Tarfon. So Amalei Rav Akiva says, Yehuda, Tzavu panecha shishavta as a zaken. You're happy that you made an old man feel bad. He says, Timani im tarich yamim. I'll be shocked if you survive this year. Now, by the way, it's interesting. It could be Rav Akiva was not cursing him. Rav Akiva was saying, I've experienced students that didn't treat each other nice in learning. It doesn't end well. So he said, I'd be shocked if you survive. So the Gemara just an afterthought to this. Amar Rav Yehuda bar Loi, Oisei Perik Paris Pesachaya. This conversation took place around Pesach time. Kishalisi Latzeres. So a couple weeks later, when I was around Shavuos time, Shal Diachar, I asked, where's Yehuda ben Nechemia? And Yehuda ben Nechemia Hechinu. V'Amar Loi Nifter v'Halacha. So he's not alive anymore. So it happened quick. Yeah, well, it happened quick. So the point is, it shows you Rav Akiva. I would be interested to know at what stage in history this took place. If this is the post-Lag BaOmer story, you can see Rav Akiva being like, don't mess around with covet of other Rabbanim. It probably was, because I think Rav Tarfon was from one of the newer students. Says the Gemara, Amar Menachos bar Yitzchak, L'divrei Yehuda ben Nechemia. According to Rav Yehuda ben Nechemia, Nisachim bikurim shekrim k'ayim l'aymer ksherim. Interesting halacha. Before the Omer, I bring a new wine. Before the Omer, Now, again, all new grapes, fruit, wheat should not be brought before Shavuos. Before Pesach, if you bring new grain, it's puzzle as a carbon because it's not mutter in the average home. Before Pesach, I bring new wine. Says the Gemara, it's mutter. Why? Because are you allowed to have new wine throughout the year? Yeah. So says the Gemara, it's very simple. Yehuda Hebrecham's whole shita is, if you go against the Torah and you bring something too early, look in the Jewish home. If it's kosher in the Jewish home, it's kosher b'diavad. So it's kosher in the Jewish home. New wine is kosher year round. Even though Hashem said not to bring it before Shavuos, b'diavad will be kosher. Why? Because it's kosher in the Jewish home. It's a similar svara. Says the Gemara Pshita, well, it's pashit. The answer is mouth the same. Ahasim with the hudim miklala it's a hediyat. Aval hachal hudim miklala it's a hediyat. Kamashlan kol shekin hecha deloy it's a klal. The chiddush over here is that unlike where he said before, where you bring a carbon between Pesach and Shavuos, over here it was never aser. Meaning, you might think that you need a situation where it was aser and you needed something to be matir it, like Pesach, which is matir the Chodesh throughout the Jewish homes. Kamashal no. Because the wine was never aser by a Jewish home, if you bring wine too early, it's going to be kosher. B'diavad. Okay. Now, one last point, and this is going to take us into tomorrow's daf. Okay, one thing to remember before 5 minutes. One thing to remember: the order is, when can I bring a carbon of new grain? So you got to go through two things because time is linear. You go through Pesach and then Shavuos. So you go through the Omer and then you go through Shtei Alechem, and then after Shavuos you can bring new grain as a carbon. Here's the question: what if I go out of order? Meaning, what if I have grain that's planted between Pesach and Shavuos? So Pesach didn't help, right? Pesach only helps for grain that was actually growing before Pesach. I plant grain between Pesach and Shavuos. So what I have is, I have Shavuos, and then I have the following year Pesach. Can I bring it the following year Pesach before Shavuos? Do you say, well, no, it's not a year? Meaning, do I need, what do I need to bring a new carbon of grain? Do I just need that I have to pass Pesach and Shavuos? Or does it have to be the proper order, which is you need Pesach and then Shavuos? Over here, I have Shavuos then Pesach. That's the question. Says the Gemara, Boi Rami Bar Chama, Shtei Halechem Maushi Atir Shalei Kisidron. Can I bring a carbon if the two Yom Tovim were not in order? I mean, normally, you have grain of 2026, right? It's new. So then you have Pesach, and then you have Shavuos, and then you can bring as a carbon. Over here, I had grain that was grown between Pesach and Shavuos. So I didn't have a Pesach. I had a Shavuos, and then I have the following year Pesach. Can I bring a carbon right then? Or do you say, no, it's technically, you need Pesach and then Shavuos in order. So the previous Shavuos doesn't count. So therefore you need Pesach and then Shavuos, and then you can bring it. That's the question. Can I bring it between Pesach and Shavuos the following year? Yeah, I don't think this is, I don't know if this, I think this is not common, but I have no idea. You always sow with tears. I don't know. Says the Gemara, Hey Chidami, what's the case? I plant grain between Pesach and Shavuos. So then I have Shavuos, and then I have the following year Pesach Mai. Kisidron Sharia, Shaloi Kisidron Loi Sharia, Idilma Shaloi Kisidron Nami Sharia. Is it that you just need two Yom Tovim in a row to be matter as a carbon, or it has to be Pesach and then Shavuos? So the Gemara says, I'm going to bring you the following raya. The raya is, I'm going to say it outside and we'll see it inside. How do I know that the pasuk in Nissi's carbon, when it describes the oimer, it actually never says the word oimer. It says takriv minchas bikurim. It actually does not say the word oimer. If you're doing Shnai Mikra, you need Rashi to be said. Rashi's like, hey, this is the oimer. It actually never says it's the oimer. So how do I know that it's the oimer? So one of the proofs that Rav Akiva comes out with is that I'll tell you why it has to be the oimer. Because it has to be, the oimer is barley, the Shtei Alechem is Shavuos. So says Rav Akiva, it has to be barley. I'll tell you why. It has to be the oimer, because the pasuk describes the carbon and Shavuos as bikurim, the first. So what do you mean it's the first? It's the first wheat, which means the oimer is the first barley. Again, that year's grain, the first time I'm bringing it, it says Shavuos is bikurim, it's the first. What do you mean it's the first? I brought a carbon on Pesach. The answer is, Pesach must be barley, this must be wheat. Because if Pesach is wheat, if the pasuk of the omer is describing the omer, and if it's wheat, again, the pasuk just describes a carbon, it describes it barley, but it doesn't really say what carbon it is. It says Rav Kiva must be Pesach. Why? Because I know that Shavuos is the first. First what? First wheat. So which must be Pesach? If Shavuos is the first wheat, what's Pesach? It's Pesach is barley. Beautiful. Why can't it be this? Maybe Pesach is wheat and so Shavuos. How could Shavuos be the first wheat if Pesach is the first wheat? The answer is, well, if growing between Pesach and Shavuos is materet, then maybe I could bring wheat by both Pesach and Shavuos. Shavuos could be the first and so could Pesach. How so? Shavuos could be the first of this year's, right? Where it was grown this year, when Pesach and then Shavuos, so it's the first of that. Pesach could also be wheat, but it's actually from grain that was grown between Pesach and Shavuos. So it could be that's meaning. If you believe that between Pesach and Shavuos it's matir differently, then it could be Pesach and Shavuos are both wheat. So what do you mean? It says Shavuos is the Bikurim. The answer is they're different years. Pesach has it would be a very strange thing that's. And by the way, the Gemara is going to reject it. The Gemara is going to say, when the pasuk says it's the first, it doesn't mean the first of that crop necessarily. It's from the mizbeach's perspective. The mizbeach has not had new grain yet. So to say that the mizbeach is the first for the mizbeach is Shavuos means that Pesach cannot be wheat. It has to be barley. Why? You say, oh, technically I could do it where it's this year is grown between Pesach and Shavuos. And that was after Pesach. The answer is, you're thinking of from the perspective of the grain, from the perspective of the mizbeach. To call the mizbeach, this is the first for the mizbeach. It has to be that's wheat and that's barley. So it says the Gemara. Just see inside. The Gemara says, Amar Rabbi Tashema in Takriv Minchas Bikurim. The pasuk says regarding this carbon, if you bring Minchas Bikurim, it does not say what it is. But Minchas Omer Kasim Medaber. This carbon is talking about the Omer that's brought on Pesach. Meichen Ba, and what type of grain is brought for the Omer? Minasa Oirim. It's barley. Atay Minasarim Ehel Minachitim. How do you know it's barley, not wheat? Rav Eliezer Omer. Nemar Aviv. Meaning basically, how do you know that the Omer is barley only? Because it doesn't say it clearly in the pasuk. So there's two explanations. Rav Eliezer says Nemar Aviv b'Mitzrayim. V'nemar aviv l'doros. It says the word aviv by the omer, and it says the word aviv by barod, by the hail, the mak of hail. Ma oivam mitzrayim sa'aron, af avam l'doros sa'aron. By barod, it says that the barod, it says aviv, and it says it broke the barley stalks. So you see that aviv means barley, so the omer is barley. Great. We're focusing on the second answer. Rabbi Kiva omer. I'll tell you why it has to be barley, because mitzinu yachid shemevi chavasim menachitin v'chavasim menasar. We find that carbon minchas by an individual are sometimes wheat, sometimes barley. V'tzibar shemevin chavasim menachitin v'im chavasim menasar. We also find that communal carbonas are sometimes wheat, sometimes barley. V'im omer ba menachitin lo yimatzinu davar tzivar shemevi chavasim menasar. If what's the only communal carbon that's barley? The only one is the omer. And we have a tradition that the tzivar brings barley, so it must be the Pesach is barley. Great. But now this is the answer we're focusing on. Davar acher, another pshat. How do I know omer is barley? Because the first carbon of that year's grain of wheat is the Shavuos grain, because it says Bikurim, which means by definition Pesach is not wheat. Because if Pesach is wheat, then how is Shavuos the first? Pesach is already the first. So it must be Pesach is barley. But says the Gemara, now if you're telling me that between Pesach and Shavuos, if you grow grain, it'll be mutter by Pesach of the following year, and not by Shavuos as a carbon, so then I'll tell you how it could be. I could argue that Pesach is wheat, and so Shavuos. You say, wait, if Shavuos is wheat, that's the first, then how is Pesach wheat? Then Shavuos is not the first. The answer is, it could be the first. I'll tell you how. The makriv oimer mahanach de'asharish, koydem l'shtei alechem, ubasara oimer. You have the same wheat. Shavuos is going to be from the grain that was grown before Pesach, and Pesach is going to be from the grain that's grown between Pesach and Shavuos. So they're both first because they're different types of wheat from different years. So why can't it be that way? So it must be that between Pesach and Shavuos is not an option. You need two that are in the order. So the Gemara responds, no, mi savris bikurim lepera kamrinon. When the pasuk says that Shavuos is the first, it doesn't mean the first grain of that crop, but rather lemizbeach kamrinon. It means it's the first time since Nisan, which is the new year, the first time the mizbeach has gotten wheat, has tasted wheat, is on Shavuos. So if Pesach is also wheat, even if albeit your shtickle Torah to make it work, then the bikurim would not be on Shavuos. It would not be the first time the mizbeach tasted. The Gemara says mizbech bepered the hashaita, and therefore it could be, even though technically it's mutter, but you wouldn't be able to call it bikurim, and therefore it's not a raya. I will stop it.